right, it's your brother Zion Lex. Sign up for our online academy, which is Learn Torah Hebrew Academy at patreon.com/Learn Torah. There are several classes that we offer. We offer a Biblical Hebrew 101 class for beginners. We have a Biblical Hebrew 102 class for people who are a little bit more advanced. We also have a weekly Torah class. We also have our Patriarchs of the Covenant course, our Matriarchs of the Covenant course, and a bi-weekly rabbinical course. All of these courses can be found on Patreon. Again, that's patreon.com/Learn Torah. You guys are definitely in for it. It's a very invasive class. All of our classes are deeply invasive and very, very meticulous to the T when it comes to understanding the culture, the heritage, and the history of our ancient ancestors. So sign up for Biblical Hebrew at patreon.com/Learn Torah. I am your brother, Zion Lex.
Shalom, shalom, family. This is your brother Avdiel Ben Levy, otherwise known as Zion Lex. Go to Amazon and purchase all of my books. Type in my author name, Avdiel Ben Levy, or you can also type in Zion Lex. There you'll find some of my earliest books and my latest works. It was written and engraved. The DNA of Sound, The Star of David Controversy, Ancient Kemet on Trial, Patriarchs of the Covenant, Matriarchs of the Covenant, and my two foremost books that are critically acclaimed on Amazon, and even one has become a bestseller, and that's going to be the Messiah Codex Volume 1 and Messiah Codex Volume 2. So go to Amazon.com today, type in my name, Avdiel Ben Levy, otherwise known as Zion Lex, and there you can purchase all of my books. Peace and shalom, family. All right, shalom, shalom, everybody. We are live and we are right back at you. I want to say peace and shalom to everyone who'll be watching us later and those of you who are watching live. I also want to take the time to ask the family who are watching live with us to smash that like button and share the live stream so that more of our community can know that we are live. I have the honor today of being joined by a brother who I've known for quite some time and have been deliberating with here and there behind the scenes to see if we can come together and do something powerful for the community. And so it's with great honor that I'm able today to introduce a brother that I know as Mikael Ben Or, Master Herbalist. Peace to you, my brother. How you doing?
Shalom, shalom, Moray, Rob, Chief, the great one. Shalom, Zion. I appreciate you for having me on. We've most definitely been politicking for a while now.
All right. All right. And I just want you to know that the feeling and the sentiment is mutual. I had been reaching out behind the scenes for quite some time, as well as yourself to do a number of different things. But it just so happens that it's this particular topic that brought us in the room this evening. Yes, so let's capitalize on this moment and let's make history. The first thing I want to ask you is for you to give us a little background about yourself. So just tell us a little bit about yourself. Maybe even how you've come into this path of spirituality, and then from there we'll segue into how you came into your path of healing.
That's a really good question, inspired question. I've been in this way of life since 2015. I would say I didn't come in the particular way that most come in by way of what you call a camp. I actually came in through a family member. Surprisingly, my little brother actually told me about this walk. And interestingly enough, I think all timing is divine with the Creator, because he called me right at the time that I was at a family reunion and we were actually walking the plantation that my family was slaves on. So I believe it was definitely divine, especially during that time. I was in the season of just seeking like who I was, where did my last name come from? And at that point, I knew the name of the slave master who owned my family at that time. I knew the name of his sons, the location and everything. But it was just that particular piece, which was, I guess you could say, the glue that brought everything together. And so when I first heard the truth, it was kind of hard for me to really fathom us being the people, you know what I mean? Just because so many things have been told to us, we've been programmed, and it just took a while for me to really grasp the concept. And that was actually back in 2014. So about 2015 January, that's when I started to actually commit to learning, and that was by way of my brother's father and his organization at that time. And so from there, interestingly enough, I was studying by myself. This is when I lived in Houston, Texas, for about a year and a half. 2016, I attended my first Passover with a camp at that time.
Okay.
And from there, I was just on Bible study calls. Lo and behold, didn't know I got grafted into a camp 3 months later after that Passover. I got a message asking me what is my Hebrew, what Hebrew name I want to go by. And I'm like, Hebrew name? What do you mean Hebrew name? You're like, yeah, you know, we gotta have a Hebrew name. I'm like, why do I have to change my name? I don't understand it. So lo and behold, gave me a Hebrew name, and then he called me a cadet. And I'm like, what the heck is a cadet? What do you mean? I don't understand. All I want to know is the truth. I just want to study the Bible.
That's
and
right.
So lo and behold, from there, they end up having a split. And so I was just kind of in the space of, okay, I didn't know this came with it, right? And so from there, another organization merged. And I was really, especially when I went to college, I went to Central State University in Southern Ohio. That's actually where I first heard about Christianity actually being beaten into us during slavery. So that was 2012. So I was already in the search of just trying to understand the truth. And so going back to 2015 or 16, I really was trying to understand the history, understand the culture. And surprisingly, that's when I came across some of your videos, especially when you started to get into West Africa. When I came into this walk, message that, you know, we don't come from Africa, them dirty speaking Africans, all those type of things. So I was really in the place of at some point believing that, but then something didn't make sense because I wasn't given the actual location of where we came from.
That's right.
And so looking into your work and other brothers from that point, something just didn't sit well with me. You know, brothers not taking the language serious. Just the behavior, it just did not make sense of if we're the people, why do we still look like the same people before this walk? And so in Cleveland, there was a brother, I'm pretty sure you know him, by the name of Prince Asiel Ben Israel.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And he threw an event. I didn't even know it was his event because how he disguised it was so well, where he was trying to bring people from different belief systems together to talk about community problems. And so from there, during that event, it was so powerful because every other person went, but then when I went, it was an uproar. It was just a whole uproar of these elders and these pastors. And so Prince Asiel came over, and this is before I knew him. He said, his exact words was, "I've been waiting for you." I'm like, what do you mean? I've never met this brother in my life. And keep in mind, from Cleveland, Ohio. So I don't know what you mean by that.
Right.
I don't know what you mean you've been waiting for me. So he came up to me and he just had a very kind spirit, you know, man. Y'all rest his soul as well. But he had a kind spirit. He was the one that actually introduced me to the actual linguistics of Hebrew.
Okay.
So when I told him my name at that time, I was like, well, you know, they call me Mayakala. He looked at me crazy, like, what? He said, like, what's your real name? I said, well, you know, it's Michael. He said, okay, well, based upon the linguistics I speak, it's Mikael.
Come on.
So he initially actually gave me that name based upon what I told him. So he started breaking down the meaning behind the names, the numerology behind the name, and it just moved me to want to know more. And so from there, I asked him, like, hey, can I get your number? Because I've never heard this before. And so me and him was politicking from 2017 up until 2018. He was actually the one who engaged and put the idea of going to Ghana. So my first trip to Ghana was in 2018. It was actually supposed to go see him and take a tour, but he ended up passing that same year. Okay. But I believe everything happens for a purpose and a reason, because he was that seed that got me to Ghana, where I started understanding the Ashanti and certain people of the Fulani and just those different languages, and they started breaking down the symbolism. So it just further got me to dive into the culture and the history of our people. And that's kind of where I realized, oh, in this sect of our culture, or this sect of our way of life dealing with Hebrewism, I'm being lied to. That's how I took it.
That's right.
And so it then caused me to disassociate from that sect of this life and go on a journey of understanding linguistics. So I started studying the language in 2018 and just started really studying the mysteries. That's when I got your book, The DNA of Sound, and just really started to study and understand culturally who we are as a people. And so from there, that's how I got to where I'm in as far as my spiritual walk of now I'm able to embody it all: spirituality, culture, linguistics, apparel, and just feel now that I know who I am, why I am, and where I'm supposed to be at. So on that tip of my spirituality, that's what really got me to where I am today, is that I didn't stay stagnant in this one sect, or I'm gonna say passage of Hebrewism. I elevated and start opening myself up to a higher heights of our culture and our history, to the point that now I'm able to see holistically who we are and our purpose on this earth today.
I love it. Absolutely love it. I always say language matters.
Yeah.
And when we talk about language, especially the Hebrew language, the holy tongue, pronunciation matters. So when I hear people pronounce a name like yours, Makaala, right? Of course, knowing the language, the moment you hear that, you get to laugh, and it's a little humorous.
Yeah.
But on the serious side of it, you want to reason with that person and say to them, and educate them in that moment, and reveal that one of the things that's problematic about that pronunciation is that it doesn't yield the definition necessary to give that name its meaning, right? Michael is a rhetorical question.
Right.
Who is like unto El, right? Who is like God, which is a rhetorical question. Nobody is like God, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the interrogative for who is me.
Yes.
When you want to say who in Hebrew, which is an interrogative question, it's pronounced me.
Yes.
When you want to say another interrogative, which is what, it's pronounced ma.
Yes.
So this is why pronunciation matters.
Mm-hmm.
When you're saying Macha'ala, you're not saying who is like unto El. Because if you want to say who, you're saying me. And then you have the ka, which is, it means like or as, and then El, God. So me, ka, El, who is like God. So using this moment to further educate this beautiful and ever-growing community, to show them that when we do this, it's not about trying to one-up anybody or make any community feel lesser for their contribution, but it's really to raise us to a higher level of coming together and not just serving the creator, but in honoring this culture and this heritage that has been passed down for thousands of years unto us.
Absolutely.
Having said that, I want to segue immediately into the topic at hand, right? So we're here to discuss the return to Eden, a holistic approach to healing. From my personal observation, a lot of people that I know that grew to become very astute in terms of natural healing, the knowledge necessary to come into natural healing, were people who at one point fell into grave disease or were walking around very, very sick. Dr. Sabi is probably one of the most foremost examples of that. He tells everyone that before he becomes a masterful and knowledgeable person on healing the body through the use of a natural approach via herbs, he tells that he was very, very sick, even deathly sick, right? And another brother who's famous in the community right now, he's known as Yakai, right? Powerful brother, a brother that we know personally. He also has a journey that he tells, that he speaks of, where he says he was sick. So I want to ask you, what was the catalyst for you coming into the knowledge of healing the body naturally? What was the catalyst? What was the driving force behind that?
Well, it's interesting because I started my health journey literally at the same exact time I started my spiritual journey. I just got out of a bad relationship, and was just kind of, and I was the heaviest I was in a very long time. And I
Mhm.
was just in a space of like, I had to start loving myself. And so, interestingly enough, versus their story of that catalyst moment of getting sick and then going, mine actually came in the middle of my study. So
Mm.
I started as a certified personal trainer in 2015. And from there, I took about 50 to 100 clients. About 2016, I realized how important the diet was versus just working out alone.
That's right.
And it happened because I actually started giving somebody just my diet, not even something like intentionally, but just something I do that keeps my weight down and keep fit. And from there, this lady came back and said she healed from fibroids. So I said, okay, let me take a little bit more interest in really studying nutrition. And so right before the documentary, What the Health, came out, I actually got certified as a nutritionist as well. And so from there, once what the health came out, that kind of really, if I had to give a catalyst moment, it was that moment of realizing, oh, the medical field really doesn't care about us, and they're intentionally poisoning us. So from that point, obviously the first person most of us study is Dr. Sabi,
Mm.
at least from a distance. And then from there, I started studying Master Herbalist Patrick Dales, which
That's right.
he don't really get enough credit.
That's right.
But I studied him for a very long time. But I would have to
Mm.
say my first initial teachers were women. One actually Daniel Allah's wife, sister,
Okay.
and then another sister named Shakara. They actually taught me, gave me the reference books, and showed me how to actually start healing. And then
Mm.
2018, when after I came back from Ghana, I ended up getting sick from malaria and came back, and I was hospitalized for like 2 weeks. And I actually almost died. My blood was 80% full of parasites. I ended up catching
Mm.
it there, and I was on a breathing ventilator for 2 weeks. Lost so much.
Wow.
It got to the point where they considered me having surgery.
Mm.
And what really made me apply the knowledge was I remember sitting on that bed and I had a breathing ventilator, and my mom was on FaceTime with me, my imam, and she was talking to the doctor, and the doctor pretty much told her, she was asking, "What can we do?" He said with a straight face, "All you can do is pray."
Mm.
I said, okay, well, that's exactly what I'm gonna do.
That's
That's
right.
what I'm gonna do. And so from that point, I really didn't eat the food. And there was a sister in there who actually given me fresh pressed juices while I was in there, along with what they had to give me for the medicine. So from there, I realized that I had obtained all this knowledge, that word knowledge, knowledge, right? But I never actually applied it. And so during that time, this is actually the first time I heard of Yaki from this sister. So from that point, that's when I actually got with him about late 2018, going into 2019. I studied under him personally for a while,
Okay.
um,
Okay.
directly. So I had my journey, and that was one of the things I had prayed for along my health journey, is to actually find somebody who was on the same wavelength when it comes to Hebrewism and health.
Mm.
So got with him for a while, and then about maybe 2021, 22 is when I finally, like, it's time for me to go start really applying it and establish my own. And so from there, became a certified herbalist. My first case, which is very rare for most herbalists, but my first case of healing somebody was of stage 2 breast cancer back in 2020. It obviously at first applied with me first helping myself by the power of the Most High, and then I started pretty much taking up practical knowledge and applying it to different friends and family around me to see how everything worked, including my own children. And so 2020, that's exactly where I was ready to step out and start my own healing with the community.
I appreciate that, man. Powerful journey, by the way, if I might add. And having brushed shoulders with someone who's considered a giant right now, Brother Yaki, in the herbalist community. So the next thing that I want to ask you is maybe a step into pace up a little bit. Um, in terms of approaching healing, right? You have a network that you entitle the Edenic Experience. Anyone that reads the Bible and they hear the word Eden, they relate it to that natural estate of man before man's fall, right? So, what is your meaning and intention behind the title of the Edenic Experience, and break down to us essentially what that means?
So when I came up with that name, it was me really taking the time. I had an elder, have an elder named Elder Moray Nuryahu Ben Levi. And I remember him telling me, he said, if you really want to understand Genesis, just the first 2 chapters, it would take you a long time to grasp it. And so I've been studying Genesis 1 and 2 for years, like very slowly going through the language. And so when I realized that, however we want to look at it, whether it's a physical thing that happened or allegorical, this was an environment, if we want to say it properly, so a circumference of elements that made man holistically Elohim on earth. And so when I looked at all the elements that man or Adam was given, from being in Adam or Eden, being with those rivers that give life and nourish the land, being around those rivers that give what we say financial gain, or however you want to call it, gold, right? Then he given a diet. And then he was given a function of giving the creation functionality. So he started to become a master of his own environment. And the last thing he was given was a Isha. He was given a wife who was able to be that soldier, or be able to be that governing force to make sure all that the Creator give him stayed intact. And so when I looked at it, I said, this is not just an internal experience that we have to have when it comes to health, especially holistic health, but even your external environment has to actually be intact as well. Because I've done enough trial to see that you can be on a plant-based diet. And this is one thing I want to talk about, because a lot of people push the plant-based diet, but don't understand the actual environment that you have to even obtain that type of lifestyle. I've seen one of my clients, I had 2 clients that was dealing with herpes, right? Same issue, same symptoms, everything. I put them on the same exact diet, or live it. I put them on the same exact herbs as dealing with that type of parasite. One healed in 30 days and the other one didn't. Now, some herbalists won't admit that sometimes they'll have cases that they may not heal somebody. That's okay, because that gets us to go back to work to see where did we go wrong, or what did they possibly do wrong. Right. So that's exactly what I did. And I started doing some self-analysis with myself first. And then I went to go ask them questions. What did you do? How was this? How much did you eat this? How much did you drink this? What was going on? So the one who did heal, they stopped listening to what you call trap music. They remove every toxic food in their refrigerator. They got on a good plan with their partner, so their partner will not disrupt them, because that's another big key too. Your partner has to be in line with your lifestyle. They made sure that their children was intact, and they made sure that even the very thing they were watching on TV was not negative on top of the diet. Okay. But then I go to the person who was not healed. They still was listening to trap music. They were very irritated. Their job stressed them out. Their relationship was very bad at that time. And so that made me realize, like, oh, this is bigger than just a diet. This is external environmental issues that we have to deal with too. And so that's what I started to add to my program. I want to show you how to transform your whole environment into an Edenic experience. I want to put the natural elements like spider plants around that help you breathe. I want to put the natural elements of certain incense that help also clean your air, because you're sitting through synthetic airwaves all day. I want to show you how to read a book versus watching the TV all day, where reading a book actually helps stimulate your mind and expand your consciousness. Because maybe, just maybe, we can change your external environment that would assist in the internal environment. Because anytime, no matter what your diet is, anytime you're in an environment that produces stress, you automatically going to produce cortisol and adrenaline. And anytime you produce too much cortisol and adrenaline, it will get dumped off to your blood and can cause your cells to dehydrate. So I realized that it's bigger than the food. I realized that it's bigger than what I perceive, but we have to literally change our environment. There's a reason why Black people specifically are the only ones predominantly that get sickle cell anemia in America. Could it be simply that we're not in the plains of Africa or Northeast Africa, wherever the location we want to identify with? But the reality is where the sun is sitting more closer to the equator, where we have more natural fruits that we can actually pick from the trees, where we can actually take our shoes off and get in natural soil rather than clay that has a hard time breathing, or we wearing these shoes that's causing a lack of circulation in our feet on top of walking on concrete that don't breathe at all. Could it possibly be that we've been taken out of our natural environment, and they actually got a scientific term for it now? It's called biophilia. And what biophilia is, it means he who is in friendship with nature genetically.
Come on.
He who was in friendship with nature genetically, not just spiritually, not just mentally, but genetically, who's in sync or assimilated with nature. And they did a report that showed you those who stay further away from the city have longer life. But as you get close to the city, you see a higher rate of respiratory issues. You see a higher rate of diabetes. You see a higher rate of violence. You see a higher rate of hate. So you see, and when you get further from nature, you get closer to disease. You get closer to nature. You get closer to God. And so when I saw that, I'm like, that is the embodiment of the Edenic experience. We have to get into a natural element that is conducive to our growth and development as human beings or as Elohim on earth.
I totally agree. You know, I want you to clarify some terms for us, right? I want this conversation to progress at such a powerful level. So I'm going to be very careful with the way in which I introduce ideas and have you respond to them. And then we'll get into as much specifics as we can. Explain to us what is meant by the term plant-based. A lot of people are going into the supermarkets today, and because of a change in diet and our lifestyle, they've strayed away from eating meats, and they've either become vegan or vegetarian, and as a result, now they're pulling towards a plant-based diet where they're going inside the supermarkets and they're looking for packaging that says plant-based. I want you to explain to us the difference between the general idea of having a plant-based diet and what plant-based means when we're looking at packaging in the supermarket.
Perfect question. I will go even further and say I would like to say more like soil-based.
All right.
Why am I saying that? Because we can find plants in the grocery store that particularly may have not grown from the soil. So now we got to get into the details of that. When I say soil-based, or let's use, for lack of a better term, plant-based, it is anything that is grown from the soil. So you got beans that's grown from the soil. You have potatoes that's grown from the soil. You have leaves, spinach, collards, kale. These are grown from the soil. You got herbs that's grown from the soil.
Okay.
So particularly if I had to tell you how to identify plant-based, it would simply be anything from the soil. But I would go even further and say this. Get away from the grocery stores and look for your farmers, because you should know who's touching your food. You should know who's doing your food. You should know what they're doing to your food. How long it's been on the shelf, because there's something called the Label Law Act where they can actually change the label on that food, and it'd be a year later. I'll give you an example. I used to work for this trunking company, right? And we were delivering chicken one time, and I was getting it off the truck, and the owner said, "Man, this chicken been dead for a year." So in my mind, I'm like, "Oh man, okay, I'll take it back for you. You know, that's messed up." He said, "No, it's all good. I'm gonna sell this in 3 days." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, I'm gonna sell that. Yeah, we do this all the time." So now, something that's been dead, and if you know anything about blood, if you know anything, especially if you're reading the Torah,
come on,
understand how blood after 3 days becomes toxic. Understand that once that toxicity gets into that blood, especially depending on how the animal is killed, that you literally become what you eat. So when you're dealing with something like cataracts or leaky gut, or you're dealing with something full of parasites, you're not realizing the damage that happened to that food. Even when it comes to plants, there's a specific way you should even harvest that plant. Because if you pick it too early, it can become a toxic to you. So now we get into the science of even plantology. So most people eat bell peppers green, not knowing that the more ripened it becomes and it changes color, that's when it's most high in nutrients.
Okay.
So I would say when it comes to picking out plant-based foods, your best source to go to is your local farmers. And there's plenty of them.
Okay, I appreciate that. Now, again, I wanna be very specific with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I go into, like, let's say a Costco,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm looking at some of the labels in the freezer aisle, and it'll say plant based. I want you to explain to us what is plant based in terms of the label packaging that people are encountering in the supermarket, because many people are starting to slowly awake to the idea that that term plant based is a loosely defined term
Yeah.
in the retail space and may not necessarily mean what you previously described. So
Got it.
explain for us what is plant based in a supermarket setting.
I would say in a plant-based in a supermarket setting is, I'll give an example. If you have, let's say, orange juice, if we give an example, the ingredients should just say orange.
Come on.
So when you look at, let's say, a bean burger, it should not say a bean, this bean and that bean, and then this long word that you can't even say out loud, that you have people to understand. So to answer directly, the question is, plant-based is simply when it's organically what it actually says. If it's a bean burger, it should just be beans. If it's
Okay.
orange juice, it should just say orange.
Okay.
That makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And with that, I have a question for you. What are your thoughts on plant-based supermarket retail items that are recreating things in the meat world? For instance, now they got plant-based oxtail. They did have plant-based chicken. They got plant-based hamburgers. They have plant-based lasagna. Talk to us a bit about what those may entail, and describe for us the dangers, if any at all, to be understood about some of these things.
Well, I think this goes back to understanding eating, right? It starts with a consciousness. That was the first thing the creator gave us, was consciousness. And so when you look at the consciousness about behind eating plant-based meat, let's call it what it is, plant-based flesh, the idea that you want to eat anything that's relevant to flesh tells you that you're not really ready to go plant-based. Because you still want to have the sensation of feeling like you're eating that meat. Where we said it, in slavery, they said, take the mind, but keep the body. Well, we say cleanse the mind and the body will follow. So you have to first cleanse your mind of actually looking at plants for what they is and seeing the benefit of it versus trying to code it or put a blanket over it and say a plant-based oxtail. So to your question, the dangers of plant-based, anything referred to meat, is that most of those are chemical based. Most of them are chemical based. And I'll be the first one to tell you, when I first went plant-based, right? Most people go to what they call Impossible Burgers, or what's the other one? Beyond Meat.
Yeah.
And that's the transition. And so when I transition to that, I'm thinking I'm doing something. My Shabbat meal's coming. I'm maybe eating maybe one or two of them. I'm feeling good. I'm on a plant-based diet. I'm feeling like I'm on a journey. And this was after I did a 30-day all fruit cleanse. And so then I realized that when I started to defecate, it still stink. And if you know anything about people who transition to plant-based, you don't really smell. You don't have those toxic smells in your armpits or even when you're urinating or defecating. It doesn't smell like anything if you purely cleanse it. You only start to tell when you start adding things that's full of chemicals or it's full of toxins. So I noticed that I started to have a smell when I defecated. And so I'm like, well, I'm eating predominantly fruits all day. I'm eating raw salads. I'm juicing. The only time I'm really eating something, I guess, would be not necessarily plant based all the way, would be these Beyond Meat burgers. So then I started to do my research on it, and what I found out is that Beyond Meat burgers are worse than chicken.
Oh man, can you say that again? Woo!
I found out that Beyond Meat is worse than chicken and is actually causing a high rate of cancer in the so-called vegan community.
So if I want to make sure I'm capturing what you're saying accurately, there are studies, I'm assuming based on what you're saying, and you can clarify. There are studies, right? I'm guessing we can possibly look inside science and medical journals. They're now starting to say that impossible burgers are linked to cancer. Is that what you're saying?
If you go to the National Institute of Health, if you go to WHO, if you go to Oxford University documents, if you go to University of Alabama documents, they've actually done studies because it's been a high rise of vegans who are having cancer now, stomach cancer specifically. So when I looked at it and I started to even put on weight eating it, I'm like, what is going on? I'm not eating no meat. I'm not eating no dairy. What's going on? And
Right.
that's what it was. It was the so-called plant-based burgers. And so when you look at and this is why we have to study. I'm big on studying ingredients. We should take pride in knowing what they're doing to our food.
Right.
So when you look at these ingredients and you actually start to look up, I mean, you take the time, and my family, I will take the time in the store. We will be there for 3 hours before I leave with the food. When you actually look up each ingredients, you're talking about rat poison. You still talking about some like Impossible Burgers still use cases of pig. And so they may not necessarily be the meat itself, but they'll use different parts of it, like maybe the bone marrow of pigs to use as medicines on that. And that's what they don't tell you because they have a law. They don't have to tell you everything. All they have to tell you is the main ingredients.
That's very interesting because those are considered byproducts, right?
Yeah.
And from what you're saying, those don't necessarily have to be included in the label ingredients because of various laws that are protecting this. So here you are buying an Impossible Burger, a burger that says Beyond Meat, and it's filled with carcinogens.
Yes.
It might even be filled with, as you said, pork casing. So you're a Muslim. There might be a Muslim out there listening, right?
Yeah.
You're a Jew, you're a Hebrew, you're a law-abiding Christian, and you're removing yourself from pork and pork byproducts, and you're even removing yourself from meat, but you're now getting into this Beyond Meat, this Beyond Burger, this Impossible Burger, and it might have more pork than the pork you've been eating.
Yeah.
This is something else, brother. And I got to tell you, man, it's an epidemic because you have to think about it. Where are people consuming these things the most? It's where people socialize the most. So now you can go to the movie theaters.
Yes.
And there's a whole vegan option.
Yes.
And it says Impossible Burger. Right? You go to other fast food stores and they ready for you. Impossible Burger. And you're saying, great, there's a vegan option here. Honey, I'm good. Not realizing that the chemicals involved in the processing of this Impossible Burger can do as much harm as the meat you stop eating, if not worse in some cases. That's interesting, brother. That's interesting.
And that's what we have to start looking into, because once that documentary, and I don't know, who's really been around to like see the change, but once that documentary came out, America being who they are, capitalized on vegans, capitalized it. So that's why even I would never frame myself as a vegan. One, that vegan is a religion now, a literal religion. Two, vegan could be anything, no different than vegetarian. Where I believe those who label themselves as vegetarian are not living up to the name itself, because vegetarian literally means one who eats vegetation.
Right. So I wanted to ask you, and I'm glad you're here right now. My apologies, but since you're here, I just want to ask you, could you clarify and draw a clear distinction between the label vegan and vegetarian? What exactly is meant by the term vegan? What exactly is meant by the term vegetarian, and where is the line that divides the two?
So with vegan, right? Vegan, and I say it's a religion because they believe that you should not even wear clothes that pertains to any killing of an animal.
Mm,
So they don't mind eating byproducts or synthetic products as long as it's not actually meat itself. They'll
mm,
eat the chemicalized food, but they will not wear anything or eat anything that pertains to animal itself. Versus vegetarian plays with the idea of still eating eggs, or they'll still eat. Sometimes they'll even dive into fish. Sometimes,
yes,
but a lot of their diet is full of starches and cheese, where cheese is a byproduct of a meat, and egg is nothing but an embryo of a chicken.
that's
So
right.
that's why I look at that as hypocrisy in calling itself vegetarian, because the name itself means he who eats vegetation. But
Mm,
egg is not a veggie. Cheese is not veggies at all. So that's where the line is drawn, where vegetarians still play with the idea of byproducts of flesh. But
okay.
vegans, they touch nothing that's dealing with animals at all, but they'll still consume chemicalized food that's supposedly supposed to be plant-based.
What's the problem, if any problem at all, with processed foods? Are processed foods bad? Is that something people should totally stay away from? Educate us on what processed foods basically mean and entail, and why we should never want to be around that.
So processed food in itself means anything that is processed by the factory. So that could mean many different things, but from the element of what we know as far as the packaging in the stores, processed food is anything that goes through a chemical change in its molecular structure, that it goes into a preservative type of packaging that can stay on the shelf as long as it possibly can. So they'll use things like mono and diglyceride. They'll use what they call natural flavors or preservatives to keep the food, but it's those very bases that causes kidney failures. It's those very bases that cause colon cancer. It is those very bases that literally shuts down your whole lymphatic system and so-called immune system and dehydrates your cells, because these are preservative chemicals that literally pretty much suck up the life of all water content.
Mm. Okay, okay. Let me start getting a bit more detail with you, right? I'm gonna
Mhm.
talk about things that occur with men in the community and things that occur with women in the community, right? And I want to start with the men first. Why do you, well, all of us first, why do you think high blood pressure is such an epidemic that it is in the quote unquote African American community? Why is high blood pressure such an epidemic for us as a people?
Perfect question. And I think that's the best question because most of us deal with it. And now it's not just late 20s and 30-year-olds or 40-year-olds. I've seen now as low as 14-year-olds dealing with high blood pressure.
Mm,
And I personally believe through my own studies that it goes all the way back to slavery, dealing with PTSD, post-traumatic slave syndrome, right? Or post-traumatic stress syndrome, however you want to label it. When you look at high blood pressure, right? We're dealing with what? We're dealing with the adrenal glands and we're dealing with the kidneys. The adrenal glands actually sits on top of the kidneys, and it actually will activate the kidneys to properly filtrate. Well, when
hmm.
you look at the adrenal glands, again, it releases cortisol and adrenaline, and that's not necessarily bad. But anytime you overproduce stress in the body, you overproduce cortisol and adrenaline. So now,
Hmm.
when we look at the state of the Black community, to your question, when you look at how we work, we have a hustle mentality, a grind mentality. A lot of us struggle with bills. A lot of us struggle in our relationships. A lot of us deal with epigenetics. We're dealing with inherited trauma and drama from our ancestors, even our very parents, that we don't even realize that we're dealing with.
Come on.
And then you add the comforting diet to it, or I would like to say the sad diet, the American standard diet that we eat for comfort of our emotions, dealing with all this stress that causes more internal stress. This is where you start to see a high rise of high blood pressure, because every which way we turn from our job, working a 9 to 5, because it's very unnatural to wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning,
Hmm.
simply because you have something called a biological clock, or we're going to call your circadian rhythm. And that circadian rhythm is literally based upon the rise and setting of the sun and the rising and setting of the moon. When you look at the circadian rhythm, it's based upon your pineal gland. Your pineal gland is actually what releases serotonin and melatonin. So based upon the rising of the sun is when your body starts to release this serotonin. That's what activates your body. That's what helps with your digestive system. That's what actually helps your body get active and more focused. And that starts to set or go down once the sun starts to set. Then you start to release something called melatonin. This is what keeps you mellow. This is what keeps you calm. This is what keeps you relaxed. And this is what helps you, your sleep patterns. Now imagine if you're getting up at 3 and 4 in the morning with loud noises. Imagine you getting up at 3 and 4 in the morning and the first thing you touching is your cell phone. So now you're tricking your body to think that it's sunlight, but it's nothing light. Imagine that you have to go through a traffic all day and hear this loud noises through the city. And then you have to get at work where you're not all the way woke up. You are constantly producing stress day in and day out. And then you starting to listen to music. A lot of us, when we're sad, we want to get what? Chocolate. We want to get some good liquor, or we want to get some type of drink. And we listen to sad music that does not benefit or help the sadness that we're already in. So we're inducing more stress in the body. And then you're adding these synthetic proteins or these complex proteins and these complex starches that's now causing the organs to stress out. So you're not allowing your body to naturally process or go through its cyclical cycle every day. Therefore, now you're dealing with constipation, which also deals with high blood pressure.
I want to be clear on something you're saying. So when you say synthetic proteins, give us an example of what is a synthetic protein.
So a lot of people are now into these different type of protein shakes.
There you go.
Right? These protein shakes are full of complex or chemicalized proteins that's made in the lab. Or if I say complex proteins are dealing with the flesh. Why am I saying that? Because when you actually look at how the so-called black man and woman's body is made, and you look at the hydrochloric acid in our stomach, we sit at a 1.4. But when you actually look at the science behind meats and how much acid it takes to break down, our pH level is not low enough to break down the meats properly. So that means it has to stay in the body longer. And anytime it stays in the body longer, what does it start to do? It will start to decay. And not only will it start to decay, it will start to breed what? Parasites or worms. No different than if you leave a fruit out there long enough. Over a while, it will start to produce what? Fruit flies. So anything, something dies and it doesn't go through its natural processing of being removed, it starts to produce parasites. So now you add that synthetic protein, that complex protein, your body's not able to break it down. It causes your colon and your digestive system to be stagnant. So you got all that meat and that carbonic acid just sitting in the organs, not going nowhere, producing so much acid to the point it starts to shut down your lymphatic system. Therefore, it shuts down your lymph nodes, and your lymph nodes can't even properly process right by going to chew off all the metabolic waste that's sitting on top of your cells. So you're sitting burning, you're sitting here dehydrated, and you're sitting here causing a chemical imbalance, or what we're going to call a hormonal imbalance, never able to go through your processing properly. And all this is actually dealing with high blood pressure.
You know, it's another epidemic. We see it a lot now, mainly through the use of social media, that black women going into the hospital for labor, giving birth, you know, they're coming out with a lot of different issues, a lot of different problems. There's another element to this that's on the rise with a lot of black women, and that's fibroids. Talk to us about exactly what fibroids are, and talk to us about what you would say is the best and safest approach in mitigating that ailment.
So when you look at fibroids, right? Well, when you get down to the science of it, a lot of this is dealing with a lot of mucus buildup that's not properly eliminated, and a lot of inflammation that's not properly eliminated, and it starts to make this pus or this bubble on the uterus. And a lot of this is dealing with going back to the basis. All this is dealing with stress. So anytime you're dealing with a fibroid sitting on the uterus, it's due to a buildup of acid and a buildup of inflammation, which is caused by stress. But first of all, most women are not even in the right environment to birth. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
So And this is where my brothers need to listen up, because if we're getting these women pregnant, it is now our responsibility to create the Edenic environment for them to be in a natural, peaceful environment to give birth to the seed that you just put in her.
Come on.
But if you have her, like, and I was inspired a couple of years ago. I went to Africa and they was talking about women when they get pregnant, right? And even in Canada, they have a great program for women who get pregnant. So when women get pregnant in certain parts of Africa, specifically the Ashanti tribe, right? What they do is they actually have all the mothers, the sisters of the village, and depending on the man, he may have another wife. They have all these different women actually take all the labor away from her. For those 9 to 10 months, she just nesting and sitting in that house so that she can have the external environment of peace and love.
Come on. Come on.
And then on top of that, she actually, and this is what sisters need to realize, she then changes her diet as well. So when you actually research the best diet for a woman to be on during pregnancy to get the best vitality and the best flow of even her estrogen, because her estrogen levels have a lot to do with her uterus properly functioning. That's another thing we're dealing with is our women estrogen levels are sky high and they're very imbalanced. So anytime you have the estrogen imbalance, because estrogen itself is already acidic. So when they're dropping that acidic level, they're making it even harder for the womb to even produce life, because now it's being suppressed. So the best diet for her to be on is a raw lifestyle, like raw vegetables, like raw food, like raw. Even if she's going to cook, she should eat steamed foods versus cooked foods. Because anytime you start to cook the food, you literally change the molecular structure of that food, and versus it being alkaline to you, it now becomes acidic. So women already in that vaginal area is naturally acidic. Not that acid is a bad thing, and I want people to understand this. Acid is not necessarily a bad thing. It's the imbalance of acid that makes it a bad thing.
That's right.
Alkaline is not a bad thing. It's the imbalance of alkaline that's a bad thing. So now I know some people are like, what you mean alkaline? Yes, there are certain things that if it's too alkaline, it can cause you to go into something called alkalosis, like bleach. And I'm pretty sure we wouldn't drink bleach, but it's on the alkaline side. So our bodies are perfectly made. It's made alkaline. Or I'm sorry, it's made acidic, but it functions alkaline. Just like our blood. Our blood is an alkaline base. It sits between 7.35 and 7.45. But going back to our hydrochloric acid, it actually sits at a 1.4. So we have to just find balance in our lifestyle. So going back to that woman, when she has the actual right external environment of a man who loves her, he's not yelling at her, he's not hitting her. He's doing things that causes the love hormone, like dopamine, to be released more. She's able to now produce those hormones to go into that baby by way of her placenta. But if she's constantly stressed, you having her working a 9 to 5, and then because of her unfortunate environment, it causes her to comfort eat. So she's going to lean on candies. You got some women who leaning on ice. So she's not even getting the right amount of nutrients that she needs to even to have an environment, right? We're talking about the environment now, the matrix, as the scripture called it in English. Even when you go to that Hebrew word for matrix, it literally means to protect from harm. It means to protect from harm. So if she is to create an environment for that baby, to protect that baby from harm, then who is responsible for making the environment for her to be protected from harm?
Come on. Perfect.
That man.
Perfect. You know, a lot of things are coming to mind right now, and I want to make sure that I can not only soak in what you're saying, but I can also play my ear to the comment section and kind of respond for them. So a lot of people are going to ask, what about meat? Right? Not every herbalist is against the eating of meat. Some herbalists will say, well, I mostly caution people against consuming meat mostly, but I don't say eliminate meat entirely. Where do you stand on the argument of, do we eat meat or do we not eat meat? And could you explain for us the why on either side for you?
Got you. So for me, I'm simply going on science, and I'm simply going on what the Most High gave us from the beginning. Not to say that I'm against anybody who eats it, but just like 1 + 1 is 2, there's no getting around that. 1 + 1 is 2. When you look at the molecular structure of the so-called melanated man, woman, and child's body, it is not made to properly break down meat. As I was saying, we are made simple and upright. So when you look at the simple amino acid chains that we are made of, when the main mineral that we need as melanated people is iron phosphate. So then now we will have to now get down to the science. Well, what food holds the highest content of iron phosphate? You will see it's your fruits and it's your veggies. Why? Because iron phosphate is the only mineral out of periodic table that actually brings oxygen to the cells. So if that's the only mineral that brings oxygen to the cells, I need to find the food that's highest in iron phosphate, which would be your fruits, vegetables, and nuts. Then you can start to get down to gold. You start to get down to copper. You start to get down to magnesium. You start to get down to manganese, and you start to look for the elements or the food that has the highest content of these minerals is always going to fall down to your fruits, vegetables, and nuts. So then when you go through your process, your metabolic process, or I like to call your pancreatic processing of actually breaking down the meat, we do not have the hydrochloric acid structure to actually break down that complex meat. And this is where you start to have this carbonic acid build up and start to burn off your liver, start to burn off your colon, because the acid is so high on top of the chemicals. See, now we talking about the chemicals or the hormones that they put in the meat. So we're not even dealing with real meat anymore. Let's be honest. Unless you're getting it from an actual butcher or a farmer, which most of us is not, we're not dealing with real meat. So when you look at the complexity of how much it takes to break down, this is why not only can Caucasians eat meat because they have the hydrochloric acid to break it down in their stomach. We don't. And meat holds the main protein or the main mineral that Caucasians need. No different than rice for Asians. The main mineral that Asians need is zinc. So when you look at that, we're now talking about the geographical diet of a people that is perfectly in alignment with their genetic structure. So when you look at Adam, and if we're calling ourselves the Ben Adam or B'nai Adam, B'nai Chawah, that means we're now talking about a bloodline. Well, the thing is, the scriptures say what? Life is in the what? Blood. And if life is in the blood, what's in the blood? Something called DNA. And in that DNA is ancestral information. And in that ancestral information, it gives you your culture, it gives you your God, it gives you your custom, and it gives you the perfect diet that's assimilated to your genetic makeup. So when we start to break down from a cellular structure of the body, it mainly needs iron phosphate. Now we're dealing with ATP. Now we're dealing with energy. It needs magnesium, it needs calcium, it needs potassium, especially when you start to look at the water content in the cell, which is called cytoplasm. So now not only are we dealing with minerals, but now we're dealing with water content. Well, the thing about meat, it does not have water content at all. It's very little in water. So when you start to go through the complexities of that meat, it does not hydrate you based upon your intracellular structure, but it dehydrates you. So would I say that I'm personally against somebody who eats meat? No, because I understand where we at in time. I would suggest to anybody who does eat meat, though, that I would say you should be 85% raw, 80% cooked. If you're going to do it. And this is why I'm going to be fair with this. This is why. Because I've studied something called the Blue Zone community. And if you actually study the Blue Zone community, they're having people who are living over 100 years old. And you know what their diet consists of? 85% vegetation with 15% meat consumption. And they only eat meat 2 times a month. And they add fasting, which is another thing a lot of us are missing is proper fasting. And
we're gonna get into that in a couple of moments. Absolutely. We're gonna get there in a couple of moments. I wanna keep you here in this powerful zone right now, because I also still want to continue to represent some of the opposing questions that people may have, such as there are vegans right now that are coming out and doing videos world over, like all over the world, right? And they're saying the videos are entitled "Why I Used to Be Vegan," "Why I No Longer Am a Vegan." And when you listen to all of these videos, the common denominator from them is that after a certain point, they all said that they began to feel sick. And then when they would go to the hospital and check their vitamin level and their mineral levels, they would see that the ratio was off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, talk to us in this instance about why so many vegans or vegetarians are starting to now come out and say, I'm returning to meat, but this time I'm choosing a better cut and choice of meat. I'm using skinless meat, or I'm eating grass fed meat versus just eliminating meat, because a lot of the vegetation and the fruits, the vital minerals and vitamins in them are argued by these past and former vegans as not being as bioavailable as meat sources. So I want you to touch on that argument that that people who used to be vegans are presenting now. They're saying that vegetation sources and fruit sources of vital vitamins, minerals, and nutrients are not as bioavailable as meat sources. Therefore, you should or need to eat meat because the vital vitamins and nutrients and minerals there is more bioavailable. What's your thoughts on that?
So with that, let me first say I understand, and the reason I understand that is because I realize most people, like I was in the beginning, I had to really buckle down and really study and research and get to the point, me personally, where I test my food through the labs. So, all praise to the Most High. Down here in Atlanta, I found a lab to partner with to test these things and start to understand the angstroms and start to understand the actual proteins and the block makeup of these foods to know how to build or how to gain weight or knowing how to compound foods to get the certain vital minerals that I need. So with that being said, what I realized that most people are not educated on food science.
Mm.
And reason is because the one thing, and this is what I struggled with at first, is where do I get my protein from? How do I keep weight? Right? That's the main thing that most vegans struggle with, and most people want to go vegan but don't struggle with is how do I get my proteins? And so that's a big portion why most of them they'll go for a while and go back because they don't know food science or how to compound or combine their foods. Well,
Mm.
for those who may be struggling in that area, one of the main minerals that help build muscle is called cobalt, which actually produces something called vitamin B12. So you also need omega 3s, omega 6s fatty acids, which you can find in your avocados, you can find in your walnuts, your cashews. Think about when a horse loses weight, what's the one thing that they give them? They give them something called alfalfa leaf or alfalfa sprouts. But
Mm-hmm.
we know that protein, so-called protein or amino acid structures, are in foods. It's about having a knowledge on what food has that. So would I say eating fruits all day itself, me personally, do I think fruits all day itself will build muscle? I don't. I believe fruits and vegetables and nuts together combined
Mm.
does build muscle. I know some
Mm.
people teach that fruits alone, but we have to be honest and we have to consider the people. And this is where I believe a true scholar and a true servant of the people have to consider. You have to consider the geographical location and you have to consider the dispensation of time. So with that being said, like for example, I know that those down south like myself have more available organic food than those up north,
Mm-hmm.
especially when they deal with the winter. So now what would they do? How do they function in that functionality? And this is where we have to start understanding balance of all things. So to those people who struggle in that area of why, I would say this: it's always understanding the knowledge of what's going on in your community and your geographical location. So this is where we would, and I think the hard part we have as a community with that, because if we're going to use the argument that I have a lack of bio minerals available to me, then you have to then prove by way of the meat itself where is the minerals in the meat. Because according to any type of creation, whether that be human or animal, the actual biomineral is in the blood. And I don't know how many black people are going to actually eat blood. And even if you want to go beyond blood, we can go to the bones. How many people are going to eat the bone of an animal? Because that's where a lot of the actual proteins or actual building blocks of life are relying is in the blood. So that would kind of be, I would believe, a strong man argument. If we're going to talk about biominerals, just like in plants, a lot of it is in what you call chlorophyll. So what I would say to that is we have to take back our sovereign power of doing for ourselves. When you look at the curses of Deuteronomy, a lot of those curses were stripping us of our sovereignty. A lot of us were stripping us of our autonomy to do for ourselves, from making our clothes, making our body care products, growing our own food, even down to raising our own children. So when it comes to understanding the argument of meat versus veggies, we have to get down to the molecular structure of where does the actual protein lie in the meat? Where does it lie? Or where does it lie in any food? And I believe, this is based upon my study, if we're talking about available biominerals, based upon where the minerals is found, I would say you will find more minerals in plants than you will in meat. And this is about way of testing your food. So I would challenge anybody who may make that statement to go take your vegetables, go take your fruit, and go take your flesh, and go take it to an actual college lab and test it and see what the angstroms is on each set of categorized fruit and see what will hold it. That would be my challenge to them, because I do it down here. I send them to the lab. So when I see those test results, although I understand, especially when 87% of America's soil is depleted, I get it. But shout out to George Washington Carver, who invented the compost method, the compost theory of understanding how to create your own soil. See, I'm the type of person where rather than making an excuse about it, I'm going to find a solution. I know that the soil is depleted. If I know they spray pesticides, herbicides, and insecticides on my fruits and vegetables, but I also know that this is where all of my protein lies, this is where the life lies, that means I have to take ownership of my own health and my own life. And this is where I started to say, wait 4 years, and I became my own farmer.
I appreciate that. What led me to ask that question was a video I was just watching just the other day, literally like earlier this week, where an herbal doctor was talking about a case that he had with a patient he was treating, and he basically told the patient that in order to alleviate what that patient was going through, that he needed a lot of citrus fruits to get his vitamin C levels up. But he told him, to consume mainly citrus fruits and bell peppers and then come back. And he checked his levels. His levels were checked. He brought it in and he saw that the vitamin C levels just wasn't going up. So he was like, what's going on? So he would call him day to day and ask him, are you doing this? Are you taking this? And sure enough, he's taken the various vegetables and fruits that are necessary to get your vitamin C level up. And it still wasn't going up. So then he finally said, all right, I want you to go to the vitamin shop and I want you to go out and get vitamin C, the actual supplement. Within 30 days of supplementing with vitamin C at 1,000 milligrams, his vitamin C levels were much higher than previously. So then he used that case, that point, to say in the video, a conversation now has to be had about how much vitamins are in the fruits and the vegetables today because of the things that they're doing to fruits and vegetables. So talk to us about that enigma just for a moment. And what's your experience with that, if any at all, in terms of at some point there may be a need to supplement versus just thinking that you should only get it from vegetation and fruits. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, concerning the story, I would ask within the supplement, what supplement did they use and where is the source of that supplement? Because there is certain supplements where they're able to extract from certain fruits and combine them and make that supplement. So that would be one way I would look at it. As far as the word supplement itself, I use it loosely just because there's many different versions of that word. You got the synthetic supplements, and you have organic supplements too, what you call vital minerals or vitamins.
Yes.
So with that, it would really depend, right? I would have to really go into the study of see exactly what they did step by step, because sometimes, and this is something we have to consider too, sometimes where we may be going through what you call a healing crisis, where you may have up and down levels, and where we think it may be sickness, is really the body repairing itself, especially depending on how long we've been tearing our body up. So for some people, it may take a little bit longer, through my experience, than others, depending on how bad. Were they a smoker? Did they abuse drugs? Did they use liquor? Did they use an overreduction of wine? All these things does matter, and it does matter to the process of healing. So to that case, to be fair, I would have to really look at it myself to see what was the step-by-step processing on what they went through. But to answer your question, I'm not necessarily opposed to natural organic supplements. I'm not opposed to that, simply because I know from my search on certain products and certain companies, they extract it from actual organic fruits and vegetables themselves. And because, again, going back to what I said, depending on the location, if they're eating fruits that's growing in depleted soil, then I would agree. Of course, it's going to be low in vitamin C, because it's not going through any type of photosynthesis properly, nor is the soil yielding to that very plant itself to actually get the phytonutrients that it needs. So in that case, if that is the case, that would be the only way that I would agree, is that maybe they're eating food that's growing in depleted soil, and that is possible.
And that's possible. All right, I definitely appreciate that. So just fast forward a little bit. I want to talk about some more controversial areas, like we treat Dr. Sebi as like the godfather of this herbal healing, right? Because he's one of the older elders, and may his memory be blessed, that has brought a lot of this powerful information in this modern era today. So he's treated and celebrated today like the godfather of this, right? What's your thoughts on Dr. Sebi's very controversial statement that mucus is the cause of all diseases? What are your thoughts in analyzing his words? And we're not trying to disdain the wealth of knowledge of our beautiful elder Dr. Sebi, but we want to understand why it is that he said that, and we also want to understand what would be, if anything at all, problematic about thinking like that. So, what's your thoughts on his view on mucus being the cause of all diseases?
Perfect question. I see, Zion, you want me to get the smoke, man.
I gotta ask you the hard questions, man. I gotta, but we're gonna treat it with respect,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I would say this. First of all, we definitely give honor to Dr. Sebi for the work that he put in. That's the beautiful thing about herbalists, just like farmers. They all have their different technique. And although that can be controversial, because it's like, if his technique is working and that person's technique is working, what's the right technique? I believe it all depends on location. It all depends on what you have as a resource to you. And it all depends on their method of healing with their food combination, because food combination is something that we really should think about. So I would say this concerning Dr. Sebi in that area. We have to consider that in each generation, the last generation had a little bit more lack of resources than we did.
Okay.
They had a little bit more lack of instruments to test certain things than we did. We're in an area where knowledge is increasing in these days. So what they were limited to then, we have more access to now. So I would say this: when I personally study and when I examine, and I've done my own trial and test on myself and other people, I had to ask the question: is God wrong? Is he wrong? And why do I say that? Because he created a system, I call it a system, called the mucosal membrane system. This is already embedded in us at birth. So when you actually look at the mucosal membrane, what's the purpose of the mucosal membrane? Anytime there's a foreign invader in the body, and the hormonal imbalance start to go up, or there's a toxin that may be alerted by way of the thymus gland, your T cells, your B cells, if there's a foreign invader, your body releases something called mucus by way of the mucosal membrane. This mucosal membrane is spread out through your whole entire body. The whole purpose of the mucus is to actually bind up the toxins and the heavy metals and the plaque that you're not able to properly remove, and it helps drain your body. So it's part of the drainage system, which we call the lymphatic system. So it helps drain all the mucus and drain all the bad bacteria out of your body. Now, where does it become bad to the body? Where does it become an enemy to the body? Well, anytime we are eating acidic form of foods, or what I like to say is mucus forming foods, when we have an overproduction of mucus that then starts to become backed up due to constipation and a lack of circulation, that mucus, which is naturally a gel-like or a liquid-like substance that flows smoothly, anytime it's not being able to be properly eliminated, or it's an overproduction, that mucus starts to get hard as a wall. So once it becomes hard as a wall, that's where you see it to become a problem in the body, because then it starts to cut off the circulation in the body. And then it can start to it can start to dehydrate the cells. So it's not necessarily that mucus is bad itself, just like acid is not bad itself. But anytime you have an overproduction of acid, anytime you have an overproduction of cortisol, anytime you have an overproduction of adrenaline, anytime you have an overproduction of mucus, it then becomes an enemy to you versus a friend.
I mean, I'm very impressed, brother, because I'm very much coming into great enlightenment on how to approach healing the body. So much of what you're saying resonates with what I'm already studying, and I'm also being enlightened in this moment by several things you have said already. So I thank you for this experience. So in continuing this conversation, I want to also ask you, what are your thoughts specifically about men and women that have the thoughts of coming into a vegan diet or a vegetarian diet as a means to help better their body? How should a person do it? Do you think a person should wean themselves into it, or do you think it's just perfect and right to just cold turkey? If you're doing something bad, like consuming meat, and you consider it bad, then it's best to just come up off it. What's your thoughts on the transition into the holistic diet? Should that be cold turkey, or should a person wean themselves?
Great question. I'm actually a two-time author myself. I have a book called The Holistic Transition, where man meets holistic health. That's actually I actually wrote that book based upon my own experience. So
Okay.
a lot of what you're hearing me say, I'm not just reading books, although you see a lot of back there. I'm not reading books. I'm actually really taking the time to have these experiences. So a lot of what you read in that book is what I experienced when I first went vegan. I'm the one who went cold turkey. I went cold turkey for 3 months, and then all of a sudden, one night I went out with some of the Akeem, and we had some wine. And next thing you know, I smelled some jerk chicken, and it just went down. And I ended up cheating myself off the diet. So it took me a while to get back on that lifestyle. And so I had to come to the realization that maybe I should just start to slowly transition myself. To tell you, it took me 3 years to transition. So that made me come to the realization that, I personally believe transition is the best way, simply because we're a hyper eating type of people. We overeat. We take in a lot of synthetic sugars, and we take in a lot of different type of sweets. So we have to consider all that, especially when you start to deal with some of the addictions that we have going on. So I usually, for my clients, I let them transition, because I want them to make sure that you make this a lifestyle and not a trending diet.
Okay.
I don't want you to go cold turkey. And my thing, unless you have that mindset, which I've seen most people don't have that mindset, to just go cold turkey. If you do have that mindset, then I would say go for it. But if you have to, this is where the first part of healing is being honest with yourself. You got to be honest of what you can and cannot do, and it's okay. I like to use what I heard a quote Kevin Gates said. He said, "I don't shun people who can't go hard in the gym." He said, "I
Mm.
congratulate you, even if you just literally show up and then walk out." He said,
Mm.
He said, then just next day you go in, maybe you spend 5 minutes on 5 push-ups and you walk out. He said the purpose is to get better each and every day.
That's
I
right. The
want you to
process.
live. Yeah, I want you to live. I want you to experience life itself. And if life is a process, if life is a journey, we also have to treat our transition as a journey too.
I love it. That's beautifully explained. You know, a reoccurring theme in the chat right now are people asking about eating for blood type, and you know, great minds empower and think alike, because that was one of the questions that I had coming into this discussion that I wanted to ask you later on. So now is the perfect time. What are your thoughts on healing the body via blood type? In other words, a lot of people that are self professed master herbalists are treating ailments like this is the root problem and this is what you have to do, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are others that say it's a little bit more complex than that, because your blood type is going to say a lot about what you need versus what you don't need. So, what are your thoughts, your unique ideas about eating for blood type? Talk to us about that, if you will.
So again, this is just my understanding. This is from my research. This is my opinion. Um, I'm not knocking anybody who may go with that choice of healing. Do I personally believe in blood type? Not based upon the theory that they have. And this is why I say this, because they have yet to show within the blood itself what makes the blood type O, what makes the blood type N. They're not directly telling you what in the blood makes it that type of blood type. So for me personally, when I look at the blood type and then I start to look at the DNA chains and I start to look at what makes those chains stronger, the building blocks of life, I would base the blood type off geographical location versus the blood type of a person itself. Because again, you're going through epigenetics as well, where you're inheriting blood, you're inheriting genes, you're inheriting cells. So now we will have to go through the ancestral line to see what is the inherited toxicity of the blood or the inherited so-called good genes of that blood to know what will be befitting anyway. So I would say when you look at the blood type itself, I would base it more on geographical location than these alphabetical letters of blood or N or whatever they would like to call it, simply because I personally, and maybe y'all can help me, I personally have not seen within the blood test itself where they get the blood O and all these different letters. What in the blood gives you that? Because when I look at the blood, it's based upon minerals, it's based upon DNA.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. Talk to us in this moment about the value of intermittent fasting, generally speaking. I'm going to also ask you about the value of intermittent fasting for muscle building, but I just want in this moment for you to explain to us what is the value, if any at all, of intermittent fasting. Is that a very important part of your holistic regimen that you would, tell someone that they need to absolutely incorporate intermittent fasting, because it's not just what we put in our bodies to help heal our bodies, but it's also giving our bodies a time out in order to strengthen and enhance the healing process. So, what are your thoughts on intermittent fasting? And can you explain for us how you understand the term and idea intermittent fasting to mean?
Got you. I think intermediate fasting is a very great thing. Intermediate fasting been around since the beginning of time. Whether you want to talk about religion, whether you want to talk about culture or custom or society, fasting, especially in the more Eastern cultures, have always been the thing. Uh, Even if you want to look at it from a spiritual essence, because Just like when you see Yeshua said, he said, man shall not live by bread alone. You see? So there, we can look at that from a spiritual place, but what's the physical behind that too? When you look at the nature of human, and no matter what form it is, whether we're talking about finances, whether we're talking about relationship, whether we're talking about food, we are a gluttonous people. We overconsume everything. And the body just does not work like that. Just like they taught us the 3 to 5 meal a day myth. Well, if I'm eating 3 to 5 meals a day, at what point in time do I properly digest and eliminate my food if I'm constantly eating? And then we have to get into, during a certain time periods of the day, what should I be eating, or should I be eating at all? So when you look at intermediate fasting, especially, I'm going to just deal with the first part of the biological clock, which is from 4 a.m. to 12 p.m. During this phase, this is where you're going through your elimination phase. This is where you're going through your metabolic processing of eliminating all the food from the day before. So this is where you start to see your hydrochloric acid actually build up in the stomach. That's why when you wake up, if you touch your stomach the first thing in the morning, you're gonna feel that your stomach is hot. That's because your hydrochloric is literally burning off the food from the night before. So if the next phase is called the digestive phase, where it's ready to consume food and start to distribute the minerals to the cells. If I start to eat at 8 a.m., let's just say that. If I start to eat at 8 a.m., knowing that I'm in this elimination phase, what do we think was going to happen? It's going to totally stop my elimination phase and go right into the digestive phase. And this is what causes constipation. So when you look at intermediate fasting, really your intermediate fasting should be from the time that you wake up to at least 12 o'clock p.m. or 1 o'clock p.m. when your body is actually starting to release all these chemicals telling you that it's time to eat. The problem we're having is that we think the moment we wake up and we feel something going on in our stomach, we think that's the perfect time to eat, when that's really our body still breaking down the food from the night before. So when you look at intermediate fasting not only helps revitalize your cells, it helps you give your cells and your organs a break, it helps revitalize your cells, and it helps actually rebuild your cells properly. You really should be eating when you actually need to versus when you want to. And a lot of us are eating when we want to versus when we need to. And when you actually get down to it and you look at how many minerals the body needs, which is 104 minerals a day, you don't need that much food a day. If anything, you only need one meal, maybe two a day, depending on your workload. 1 or 2 meals a day. So for me personally, depending on my day, for the most part, I'll only eat 1 meal a day. Sometimes I'll eat 2, depending on how much I'm doing during that day. And then the first thing I'm eating in the morning, if I'm eating at all, if I'm going to eat something or really consume something, I'm drinking fresh pressed juices, teas, and warm water. Because warm water actually helps with your stomach. It helps with eliminating all the food from the night before. So intermediate fasting is very, very beneficial. It also helps to keep your heart rate balanced. It actually helps to keep your blood pressure balanced. And it also makes sure your blood sugars is balanced. Because we're already a so-called sugary people, because we have something called melanin that's full of sugars and salts. So we don't want, the whole thing is about balance and timing. So intermediate fasting is a very, very good thing.
Powerful, man. Powerful. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but in the meantime, can you take a link to your website and post it in the chat? Also, people are inquiring about your YouTube channel, so please do let people know verbally how they can reach you, how they can contact you, and please at the same time make sure that you type the links to how people can find you. We'll be right back, everybody, with a quick commercial break.
Caribbean kitchen food, where the spice and sense. Yeah, from jerky curry, give your dishes a chance. Oh, seasoning so vibrant, like a tropical breeze. Oh, for the finest flavors, it's a culinary tease. Oh, stay with the sunshine in every single bite. Caribbean kitchen food, more flavors are just right. With every pinch and sprinkle, a journey will begin to the islands of delight. Oh, 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 oh.
All right, all right, all right. I want to just invite the family once more to thumb up the video and share the live stream. This is a very, very powerful conversation. I have a very, very powerful brother among us, and we want to make sure that as many people as possibly can be notified and known that we are live right now. So, family, if you can, do your part to take the link to this video and share it on all of your social media platforms so that as many people can find out that we are live. The next question I want to ask you is to speak to us on any knowledge you may have on how conducive intermittent fasting is towards the development and growth of muscle building. You spoke earlier about synthetic proteins that bodybuilders are using, people are now using in the sports world to maintain and build muscle and the negative effects about that. So talk to us in this moment about any knowledge you may have on the impact of intermittent fasting towards muscle building. Is that a deterrent? If a person is trying to live a holistic lifestyle, but they're also trying to build muscle, should they be worried about intermittent fasting, or does intermittent fasting have value towards the development and building of muscles? What's your thoughts on that?
Great question. Well, first of all, most of us have to realize that we're not, when I say this, I don't mean like in a metaphoric way, but in a way of knowing the real sculpture of our body. Most of us are not in our real bodies, if that makes sense. So a lot of us don't really know what we look like in a real fitted body. Even when you brought up the muscle builders, those are people who have some of the worst kidneys in the world, literally. And so a lot of that muscle that y'all are seeing in those shows are built off inflammation. So of course, naturally, when you are fasting, this is just me being honest with you. When you're fasting, you're going to lose muscle at first because you got so much toxins. And a lot of those muscles are built on faulty principles or faulty foundation of acid anyway, or inflammation. So you're going to naturally lose muscle at first when you're detoxing, what we're going to say going through a healing crisis. But does intermediate fasting affect muscles? Not if you're dealing with the quality of minerals versus the quantity. So if you're getting the quality of minerals like your fatty acids, like your cobalts, like your vitamin B12, like your omega-6s and omega-3s that actually build the muscle, and you include rest, which intermediate fasting is a form of allowing your body to rest, you can properly build muscle. Now, will I say intermediate fast itself builds muscle? No, I want to make that very clear. I'm not saying that. But when I am saying what comes with intermediate fast is allowing your muscles in your body to rest, which most of us don't get the proper rest in the first place. But with allowing it to rest, which means, and you work out, Zion, resting gives you a faster recovery time.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
So if you have a faster recovery time, that means you have what? Better circulation.
That's right.
The better circulation you have, the quicker you can build muscle. So all this is about the quality and information that we're even putting into our body. So does intermediate fasting affect that in its essence? No. You will go through a healing crisis, which may cause it, but when your body is properly repaired and you give it the quality minerals that it needs or the building blocks of life that it needs, then you can do intermediate fasting and still build muscle. You know how I know? Because there is plant-based, you can Google this. There's plant-based muscle builders right now. And they're winning competitions. You got plant-based NFL players like Jeremiah from the Cleveland Browns.
That's right.
And he's moving fast, he's slamming things, he's tackling. So you know that you can build muscle, but if you follow Jeremiah, you know he had to learn the proper proportion and the quality of food that he needs to maintain his weight.
That's right. That's right.
So we know that there's evidence of people that is amongst us that are doing this.
You know, shout out to that brother, Jeremiah Koromor Owusu, that plays for the Cleveland Browns. You know, when me and my family went to Florida on vacation, he invited us to his home. You know, we got to meet his meal planner, amazing sister, and he was just an amazing brother to be around. And, you know, he does a lot of work in the community here in America, as well as developing a community in Ghana, in West Africa, where he started his own football league for people over there. So with the honorable mention that you gave him, I definitely want to make sure that we're able to shout out that good brother. Those of you who may not know who he is, he plays for the NFL, the Cavs, and I'm going to make sure that you guys go out and follow the, support the brother, and make sure that as much awareness as we can bring to the things that he's doing, that we can make that happen and we can make that possible. Because not only is he a quote unquote a Hebrew and bringing awareness to our culture on a major platform like the NFL, but as you said, he's also vegan,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he's really serious about it. Like I said, I literally met his dietitian, amazing sister, and they travel the world together. And she's big on, using a holistic lifestyle as a means to not just heal the body, but also heal the mind. As we bring this to a close, there's just a couple of more questions that I have for you. Also, I'm going to throw the link to the StreamYard in the chat if anyone would like to join briefly to ask him any questions. All right. I'm not going to take questions from the comment section, unfortunately. Questions will come from anybody that would like to join the live stream. So while we're waiting for anybody who has any questions and them joining, by the way, if you're joining, we need to see your face. So make sure you're prepared to go on camera. As we're waiting for any possible people that are joining, one of my closing questions for you is about the drinking of water, right? We all know, obviously, it's important to drink water. But in this new age era of there being so many master herbalists,
Yeah.
not everyone has the same view about how much daily water consumption is necessary. So, where do you stand in the argument of how much water should a person drink daily? And could you please specify for us why you believe in that?
Yeah. So going back to the root of us is cells. Our cells have a water-like content within the cells that keep those organelles intact. So we know at the base of any cell, like electrons, protons, and neutrons, these electricity circuits that help energize this water within us, that we need water at the base of us. 85 to 90, and those numbers change, right? But 85 to 90% of our bodies are made of water. So we know water is a major factor, simply being, again, that one of the periodic table minerals that make water is oxygen, right? As part of it, to oxygenate, H2O, two hydrogens, one oxygen, or the greater compound of water is H3O2. And this is what we find in our fruits. So it's very, very important to consume water content, period. But now we will have to get into the specifics of water, because you got water in the ocean that you cannot drink. There's too much salt in it. Then you have pond water. You cannot drink that because it's very acidic. So the best water for us to be drinking outside of, I would say, outside of fruits, which I think if you're going to drink water, your primary water source should be fruits, because it has a higher mineral content or water content than water itself is fruits. But in the essence of dealing with water itself, you should be drinking water that actually goes through a spring, that actually goes through a bedrock, because what actually make water able to even be consumed anyway in the first place outside of ourselves is the actual minerals in the rock. That water goes through that stream bed and it strips the rock of all its minerals to the point that we're able to actually drink the water itself to make it palatable or consumable for us to drink in the first place, that gives us those electrolytes that we're looking for. So I would say if you have a certain amount of water that you should be drinking is anywhere between 48 to 56 ounces a day. But again, I'm not saying just water itself, like spring water, but that water could include H3O2, which is your fruits, or you have something like coconut water. Coconut water is very high in electrolytes as well. So you're going to consume coconut water as well. Coconut water and coconut meat is actually the closest thing to breast milk you'll get as a grown human. You know what I mean? So when you look at the fructose that we need, the glucose that we need, that water content is totally in our natural fruits. You can have it in your vegetables by way of chlorophyll, or you can have it in your natural spring water. So as long as you in those three categories of getting your water, 48 to 56 ounces a day, you'll be good.
Excellent, man. Excellent. It's been a powerful conversation, good brother. I look forward to many more. I want us to surmise this conversation by just us reflecting on some of the things said. Um, there are many people in the community that identify as a master herbalist. And I want to ask you a straight, hard question, right?
Mm.
By identifying as a master herbalist, there's a sentiment that comes with that. A person says, oh, this person knows everything about healing. So, what makes you a master herbalist, and why do you think it's important to consult a master herbalist for natural healing?
Great question. I don't believe what makes me a master herbalist is because I got a certificate and took class. I don't believe that. I believe once you have enough trials, errors, and successes. I'm gonna tell you something. Yaki told me. He said, "You really never a herbalist or a master of a herbalist until you at least healed 100 people." So I can say, because I've went through that level of training of thought outside the curriculum of the textbook of passing the test, that I've put the work in, I've done the test, and I have been, by the power of the Most High, assisted over 100 people of healing from dis-ease in the body.
Mm.
Say I'm a healer because I believe that there's only one Rophe, which is the Most High. I'm here as a servant to assist in the healing of the body. You are the real, outside of the Most High, you are your healer yourself, because you got to take the herbs. You got to do the diet. I'm here to assist you. Why I'm a master herbalist, because not only did I take the class, but I've been able to master compounding and knowing how to bring the herbs together so that it can be a benefit and conducive to your body to heal properly.
Okay.
But I believe that's what makes somebody, even outside myself, a master herbalist, is because you have the testimonies, you have the results, and you have the people that can testify of the work that you have done.
That's beautiful, good brother. Do you have a system in place, or are you in the making, as it were, of having a system in place where you can bring people under your tutelage and training to go out and have them foster this knowledge in the community? So, where are you right now in terms of facilitating a school of thought where people can come to you for training on how to learn these things so as to distribute it? And what inspires me to ask you that is, there are some people who treat the knowledge with maybe a bit of a monopolizing on it. If you understand what I'm saying, like you don't want to have a monopoly on something that should be freely administered. And when I say freely, I mean loosely, because a person's time to me should always be valued and compensated. But what I mean by freely is there should be a system where people are able to come to you not just for healing, but for the training on how to heal. So where are you currently on that?
So I do have a YouTube channel as well called KTV Podcast. That's CADE TV Podcast. That's on YouTube every Monday at 8 o'clock p.m. I do a live on YouTube where I'm giving free information. I also have a Telegram virtual group that I partner with my sister Rachel, and it's called Cleanse to Live Community Group on Telegram, where we give free information in that space as well. And I have another group on Telegram called Genesis 129 group, where pretty much that's where I give out compounding herbs. I give out free information on how to compound your food, and pretty much how to even source your own herbs. So in that essence of a system, yes, I have one on Telegram, and then again I have one on YouTube every Monday at 8 o'clock p.m. called KTV Podcast, where I give free information. Y'all go on the page right now. It's a lot of lessons y'all can go through right now. Outside of that, I actually am in processing where I'm actually able to certify people as a herbalist. So that will be soon as well.
Excellent. That's what I'm talking about, man. And I definitely will be one of those people that will be supporting you in that endeavor. in terms of spreading the information and bringing more awareness towards that. Also, I definitely want to extend to you that if you have a commercial ready, right, a 60-second visual, audio and visual that you could use promotionally to share, Zion Lex TV is here for you. All right. So whenever you get that rolling, we're more than willing to help you to promote and bring awareness, because this is something that we all need, right? And it should not be something that's kept in the dark. So I want to give you a couple of moments to close us out by first and foremost giving us the best way possible to contact and reach you, and lastly close us out with some words of inspiration and enlightenment in terms of what anyone can do today to begin their journey of healing.
So the best way, if you have any questions outside of those forms I gave you, I do have a email you can reach me at. It's questions@theedenticexperience.org. If you have any questions pertaining on health information, or if you're having a disease yourself, like I said, we've been able to help heal herpes, stage 2 breast cancer, stage 1 stomach cancer, glaucoma, these different things, that high blood pressure, diabetes. We've been able to grow bone cartilage back. So we've been able to help assist in these things. So if you have any questions, just email me at questions@theedenticexperience.org, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. As far as words of encouragement, I would say this. We see in the words that Yeshua said, he said, "Have I not said ye are gods?" And so when you look at the element of what Elohim, Yah embodies, understand, even in your lower state, he created you in his image and likeness. Therefore, you have those characteristics as well. You have the power to help heal yourself. You have the power to help reshape your environment. You have the power to literally shift cultures and societies as we did in historical times. We have that power. All you have to do is make the choice to step into your Elohistic path, in everything from healing your financial issues, healing your health issues, healing your relationship issues, healing anything that you may have an imbalance of disease in. Once you step into that Elohistic path, the path of healing has already started. All you got to do is say yes to the path. And I guarantee, I know Zion can probably attest to this, and I can attest to it. Once you say yes to the process, he starts pushing people that helps you on that path to you.
That's a fact. There's
a reason that me and Zion link right now. Understand that.
There's just one more thought I have in closing, and that is for people who are diagnosed with terminal diseases, is there ever a scenario where a person should feel like there's no hope, that this is it? I went to the doctor, something's been bothering me, and the doctor told me I got a terminal disease. He gave me 6 months, he gave me a year, or he might have gave me 2 months. Or is there ever a scenario in your knowledge, in your work, where there's nothing I can do for you? Or should a person be able to know for surety that the only time that they should give up is when they don't have the opportunity to, because they have passed on? Other than that, so long as a person is living, they have every reason to continue the fight. What are your thoughts on people that are diagnosed with terminal diseases, where they're told they got months, or even worse yet, weeks to live? Is there ever a scenario where there's nothing a person can do?
I would say that this is where I step out the natural element of healing, because I believe one thing I tell my clients, Zion, is that if you don't believe in God or Yah, then I would tell you to stop trying to heal now. I believe that the Creator must be at the center of all healing. So with that being said, what is impossible for man is possible for our Creator.
Come on.
And I believe through faith. I'll give you an example. We've all heard of the placebo effect. We know in that experiment of the placebo effect, what they put in the pills was sugar. But Zion, how did they get healed if it's only sugar? And we know sugar, synthetic sugar, don't heal.
Mm-hmm.
It was their faith that healed them.
Mm.
It was their belief that healed them. It was the power to know that there's something beyond this that I can be healed from. So we know beyond the natural elements that we have at our hand, that if you have the creator at the center of your healing, Rofeka, if you have him at the center of your healing, then there's nothing no man can tell me. No man. So dealing with terminal disease, what terminal disease? You got a creator on your side. He looking at that like, what disease? What is impossible for me? So to your question, I believe so long as you have that nefesh, as long as you have that breath that was given by the creator and not man, you have a chance.
I love it, brother. I love it. You know, I want to first and foremost say thank you for accepting the invite to be on this program. I look forward to us having many more conversations in related areas and maybe even in unrelated areas, because I want to just bring to our community's attention that while being a master herbalist as he is, and while healing is something that he's greatly known for, that's not the end of his expertise. The brother is a well-rounded personality. Hence, he's also known in our community as a moray, as a teacher. So I can't wait to bring you on for other areas of topics that we can get into. And I definitely want to thank you for being here. And for me, it's been an amazing journey. My life, meeting people in the community. You never know what a day may bring. You never know where conversations like this may lead. I interviewed Brother Yaki in December of 2019. Unfortunately, YouTube has since deleted that video because of many things that were said in that video. So I've come to learn that we are not protected as people who are beacons of light,
Yeah.
people who are the whistleblowers and the shofar blowers, people that blow the horn, as it were. We are not protected, nor are we being protected in these spaces. So for a person that may at some point find it difficult to reach you because of challenges that may pose itself, such as censorship, what will a person need to do in those extreme cases where you're being censored? Have you thought about that yet? And if so, what's your remedy for that? For people reaching out to you, connecting with you, and being able to see material from you in the face of censorship?
I would say while you have access to the free information, the best thing you can do is download the videos.
Mm.
You know, I'm already experiencing some things, especially like with my packaging. Certain powers that be are actually blocking certain packages that I'm getting out to my clients. They actually interviewing my clients now. They've reached out to me and told me that. So that part of that is already happening, especially like on Instagram. They verbally told me, you know, pretty much they're gonna stop people from seeing certain videos of mine due to them not. I screenshotted it and everything due to them not agreeing with the information. So that's already happening. So the best thing I could tell you all is download the information that we already have, and where you could be of use as you got to do your own studies. You know, there's gonna be a time where this internet is not here. There's gonna be a time the information that Zion Lex, you're not gonna be able to reach them. So you got to be able to use us, you know, while you can.
While you can,
Because
while you're available,
yeah,
and accessible.
I got books. You utilize these books and take the information. And if anything I can suggest is take what you can, and you should be expanding it anyway. You should be going to search out deeper anyway than what we already gave y'all. So that's what I would say. Go get the information while you can.
I got an idea for you. In just having this conversation right now about possible censorship and the challenges involved in people meeting you and reaching out to you in the face of censorship, that's where in-person works the best. So I have an idea for you to consider, right? I'm saying this to you for the first time. I've never said this to you behind the scenes, but I'll say it now to you publicly. You should go on tour. You should go on tour. You should start touring all of the major cities in the U.S. Then you should take it to the Caribbean, then you should take it to Africa, then you should take it to anywhere in the world that will facilitate it. And I want to be the first person to tell you, I'll join you. And we could do something entitled Torah, Light, and Healing, where people
Mm,
can understand that there's a full spectrum that's involved in healing. Because one thing that is not often discussed that you did beautifully touch on tonight is the mental healing that's also necessary, how stress plays a role, things that afflict us, not just body wise, but mental wise. And I definitely want to have you come back on this show and do something unique. I don't see Master Herbalists talking about and emphasizing mostly the impact of our thoughts day
yeah,
to day and how they can affect our bodily processes. I want to come back and talk to you on that alone, but I
yeah.
also want to throw that idea out to you first that you should do a world tour, brother. And if you need help putting that together, if you would like somebody on that tour, I'm that brother that's ready. So just let me know and we'll figure it out.
What if I told you we already got it started?
That's beautiful.
Interesting enough, before this call, I just got off a phone call, and you're the first platform I'm telling this to.
Okay.
But I just actually got booked to go out to Rwanda to do
Nice.
yes, to do a 2 day a health seminar.
Okay.
So I don't know if I told you this, but I lived in Tanzania for a whole year,
Nice.
and I did 2 seminars in Arusha and Dar es Salaam. So I can proudly say I've done lectures in Africa, and not only that, that my books are in Africa.
Nice, man.
And I did one in Cleveland last July, and I did one up in New York this past May in Utica.
Upstate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yep.
I gotta tell you though, as a real New Yorker, and all the New Yorkers in the chat gonna go crazy when I say this, but as a real New Yorker, if it ain't the five boroughs, and we talking about upstate New York to us is downtown Canada.
I already know it. I already know it. Hey, so
Oh
we
man,
could definitely do something, Zion. I'm with that.
for sure, man. I'm sure. So we definitely will talk more behind the scenes. Again, my good brother, thank you so very much for answering the call to be here, making this happen, making this possible. I know for a fact you changed lives and inspired somebody tonight, and that's where this thing matters the most. We say, and when people hear it, it sounds cliche that if we just reach one person, then we've changed the universe. But people really need to think about that for a moment because it is so absolutely true. In changing one person, you can revolutionize and change the entire universe because there have been extreme upheavals in world history where there's very few people left or one person left. We know of stories like that right in the Bible. So changing one person is literally like changing a universe. So if we just reached one person tonight to make them consider that that processed food they're about to pick up, they shouldn't because of what they heard you say tonight, then the success of the mission is
Yeah.
here. So again, man, thank you. And
Can I
I
add one
always
more thing
give
to that?
I always give the person I'm interviewing the very last words. So
Mm,
the last words are on you, good brother.
I would like to add one more thing to what you said, and I got to shout out this sister. Her YouTube is called Traveling Sister. She said this to me, and it stuck with me for years. And I want to share it to Zion to add to what he said and everybody else. She said, "If I heal myself, I help heal the collective. If I heal
Mm,
myself, I help heal the collective." My challenge to Zion and everybody: heal yourself so that we can heal as a collective.
mm,
And when we heal as a collective, Elohim is back on earth.
mm, mm. All right, good brother. Thank you very much. And until next time, man. Thank you so very much. And shalom to you, More Mikhail,
Shalom,
Master Herbalist. Shalom, shalom. All right, family. So this has been another powerful live stream. I do hope that you guys gained a lot of information and insight and enlightenment. We will be having this brother back, may it be the will of the Creator, very soon to touch on some developing ideas of how to help take someone's journey of healing to the next level, and also have him speak on other areas of expertise that he has. For those of you who are coming in at the tail end, this live stream is now 2 hours in, so you may need to go back, Much of what you're asking has already been covered, so you just need to go back and hit the rewind. Thank you all for being here. Moderators, shout out to you all. And this is what we do here, family, on the platform. We have speakers, high profile personalities, people with great expertise in various areas that come here and engage in conversations towards the betterment and development of our community. And the only thing that we ask this community, our community, is that you continue to support us in this endeavor on all possible fronts. That support can be sharing the video, that can be thumbing up the live stream, that can be bringing awareness to what we're doing to as many people as you possibly can. And it certainly and most powerfully comes from your financial support as well to keep this thing going. Do not forget to do that. On that note, everyone, thank you all for your time. I pray that you all have a great week. I want to say Shavua Tov to those of you who are celebrating the high holy days, which I hope are each and every single one of you. We are fast approaching Yom Kippur, or what the Bible calls Yom HaKippurim, the Day of Atonement. And I want to tell you, while we fast on that day, I want to remind everyone that the most beneficial fast is not abstaining from food, but it's abstaining from past behavior that has impacted our lives dangerously, with the new resolve to not return to those ways and those behaviors. So the fast that the Lord desires is that a person have a contrite heart, a humble spirit, and a changed spirit before both God and man. On that note, everyone, I'm your brother Zion Lex. This is Zion Lex TV, and I say shalom to you all. Peace.
All right. It's your brother Zion Lex. Sign up for our online academy, which is Learn Torah Hebrew Academy at patreon.com/Learn Torah. There are several classes that we offer. We offer a Biblical Hebrew 101 class for beginners. We have a Biblical Hebrew 102 class for people who are a little bit more advanced. We also have a weekly Torah class. We also have our Patriarchs of the Covenant course, our Matriarchs of the Covenant course, and a bi-weekly rabbinical course. All of these courses can be found on Patreon. Again, that's patreon.com/Learn Torah. You guys are definitely in for it. It's a very invasive class. All of our classes are deeply invasive and very, very meticulous to the T when it comes to understanding the culture, the heritage, and the history of our ancient ancestors. So sign up for Biblical Hebrew at patreon.com/Learn Torah. I am your brother, Zion Lex.
Shalom, shalom, family. This is your brother Avdiel Ben Levi, otherwise known as Zion Lex. Go to Amazon and purchase all of my books. Type in my author name, Avdiel Ben Levi, or you can also type in Zion Lex. There you'll find some of my earliest books and my latest works. It was written and engraved. The DNA of Sound, The Star of David Controversy, Ancient Kemet on Trial, Patriarchs of the Covenant, Matriarchs of the Covenant, and my two foremost books that are critically acclaimed on Amazon, and even one has become a bestseller, and that's going to be the Messiah Codex Volume 1 and Messiah Codex Volume 2. So go to Amazon.com today, type in my name, Avdiel Ben Levi, otherwise known as Zion Lex, and there you can purchase all of my books. Peace and shalom, family.
I was personally very amazed by your level. I was not judgmental at all. I did not knew. But what I've seen today in many yeshiva that put my legs where I went through, many are not at your level at all. And I will really say to all the people who study under you to believe that they have a real master, because the way you receive us, the way you explain the Torah, the fire you bring through your explanation, it's like a stamp on the fact that you are a real one, a real sages. It will be my honor to share, to talk more about Learn Torah Hebrew Academy.
All right, perfect. So again, it's amazing to be here with Rav Zion and just, having this conversation. And the conversation is great. It's also, I also feel like it's a gift for me as well. Like, there's so many deep and amazing insights that Rob Zion brings out, and it gets me thinking. And when I look back on these conversations, on YouTube, I hear a lot of the things he's saying again, and it's like, wow, that was really deep. And the other, I talked to other rabbis too in our community, and they were like, they said, yeah, I saw the thing you did with Lex Zion. It's like, and I was like, yeah, it's like, they're like, he knows a lot. And I'm like, yeah. Like, but like they said, he's like, he knows a lot,
When you wake up in the morning and it's raining in your heart and you feel like you can't make it before you even start, your world is wrapped in darkness and you cannot see the light. And all your situations don't seem to work out right. Open up your vision. Open up the law, and remember just who you are. You're an Israelite, and you'll always be here. Remember the covenant that's passed down from year to year. Oh, 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 See, Moses was a servant with a very special deed. He was sent to old Pharaoh to say, let God's people be. Israel were captive of an unrighteous man, and though Pharaoh would not hearken to the words of the Most High plan, open up your vision, open up the law, and remember who you are. You're Israelite, and you'll always be here. Remember the covenant that's passed down from year to year. Whoa, oh, my Lord. Yes, He is our Savior, our hope and guiding light, and He grants us understanding. Yes, He teaches us the light. He will come Come, let us slow hands. Come on, just me and you. Open up your vision. Open up the law, and remember who you are. You're in the light, and you'll always be able to come down. Fast now from the air. Whoa, whoa, my love.